Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be starting a reading vlog. So, from the title, you will have guessed I am going to be reading some Illumicrate books. So I have 6 months of Illumicrate books sitting beside me. So this starts from October. Yes. Ugh. Oh my god, I can't lift them, they're so heavy. Obviously, I have read one, but we'll talk about it in a minute. So these are the last 6 months of Illumicrate books, which is when I signed up. So we have October, November, December, January, February, March. I'm not 100% sure. Are they all in the correct order? I'm not sure about these two. I have only read one of them, which is Starling House by Alexi Harrow. I did give this a 4 stars, and I read it for my reading the Goodreads adult fantasy category. And I liked it. It was like a low 4 star. I didn't necessarily care about the plot or the characters that much, but I did really like the writing and the atmosphere. So it was a low 4 star. So that leaves 5. And in this, I'm going to read 3. So there is one that I'm definitely going to read, and then the other, I'm going to just let a random number generator choose the other 4, the 2 out of the other 4. So the one that I'm definitely going to read is To Cage a God by Elizabeth May. And the reason that I'm definitely going to read this is because this is the only one that has an audiobook available to me. My library has the audiobook. I have the hold. It has come in. So I need an audiobook for tomorrow and the day after because I have a lot of stuff to do. And so just like I'm trying to only basically read books off my physical TBR. And since I'm also trying to do this vlog, I needed an audiobook. This is the only one. So this is definitely one of the choices. So that leaves 4 more. So we have After the Forest by Kel Woods. This is the first one that I got. Then we have The Principle of Moments by Esme Jacemi Pearson. And then we have, I'm not going to give you synopsis right now because I'm not really sure of them. I'll tell you when I actually start reading them. Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. And then the latest one, I have the naked cover showing, is Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan, and I have the dust jacket here if you want to see that. So those are the 4 books that we're going to be choosing between. So I'm going to get a number generator up. So between 1 and 4. Oh, my screen is really dirty. Oh my god. Let's not show that. Will I click it a couple of times? I'll click it 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4. So that's Fathom Folk. So I will be reading Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan. Okay, I do think that this will be a quick read, but also it doesn't have the best Goodreads reviews. So we're going to change it now between 1 and 3, and I'm gonna, well, is my, okay, I think it was after freezing for a second there. So we'll click it 3 times again. Did I? 1, 2, 3. I don't know if that actually worked. So 1, okay. So the other one is After the Forest by Kel Woods, the first one I got, which is probably good because I'm reading like 2 really recent ones. So it is probably a good thing that I'm reading the oldest one that I have. It's 463 pages, but it is obviously like a small hardback. The writing is kind of big in there. So I guess we'll see. So yeah, we'll see. I'm a little nervous about these. I'm kind of sad because these are probably actually the 2 that I'm like, not including To Cage a God. I think that's the one that actually intrigues me the most. But like, then I think probably this one, and then probably this one. Funny how they're the biggest ones. And yet, you know, I'm not going to read either of them. I'm planning on doing like another one of these in like a month or 2 or whatever. In a couple months anyway, I'll do another round of this. So they will get read eventually. Oh, so 50% update time. So I am 50% of the way through Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a 3 star, which I usually don't like to keep my 3 stars, but like, you know. So yes, so we're halfway through, and the thing is, it's not bad. I mean, a 3 star isn't bad, but it is just so average and everything. Like, it's not bad, nothing about it is bad, but it is very average. And like, I think like, here's kind of, I've felt this way before about books where I'm like, yes, this is good for a debut, but I wouldn't necessarily say it is good, a good book. And like, some authors, their debuts are just good books, and then there are debuts, which are just good debuts. And I think that's the case with this. Like, yes, it's a solid debut, but I feel like it is just so average amongst any sort of fantasy book, in my opinion. Because there is nothing about this that is particularly unique or memorable. And like, there's, like, I do have some criticisms and stuff. It's just like, I like, there's a lot of potential here, but I just think nothing is fully developed and sat with, and like, it's a lot of like ideas and like very tropes and character archetypes that we've seen before, and like, so like, it's a lot of like familiar stuff. And as I said, I don't think that necessarily means that it's bad or anything, but I do think that it makes it just extremely average to me, and I do think it's going to be a 3-star. And the other thing is, like, I hate saying this because it annoys me so much, because a lot of reviewers, they'll read an adult book written by a woman and go, it's YA. And like, that's not true. So many women write adult fantasy, and this is an adult fantasy technically, and so I don't want to say it, but this is YA. This is a YA book, and I think if you go in and if you only ever read adult fantasy, you're going to be let down. If you read YA fantasy and want like a fun one, then sure, give it a go. But like, it is a YA. I think it is a disservice to market this as adult because it is so utterly YA. And as I said, it does kind of kill me because it's something that I'm so passionate about, when is like how people just always like to put women's books into YA just because it is written by a woman, and like that somehow makes it lesser or something like that. And so like, I don't want to say, I don't like saying it, but like, this is YA. Like, literally, like, super early on, like, there was a fade to black scene in like a really like YA way that like I recall. It's not detailed or complex enough. The writing is very YA to me. It's very much, I think it's a bit rough around the edges, not quite as polished as someone who has been writing for a while. Kind of like the way I feel like sometimes she's just trying to fill up a word count. Like, she'll be like, oh, instead of just being like, she walked here, or you know some way of describing walking, she'll be like, her heels clicked on the floor in her heels. And it's just like, some of that is not needed. Her heels clicked on the floor, or she, like, you don't have to like say it so many times. Like, the heel, you don't have to, like, if she's clicking across the floor in her shoes, we can kind of guess that they're heels. And it's just like little things like that it's like, it doesn't feel 100% polished. I would say there was like one like little reveal which was cool, but aside from that, I just, so much has happened and yet so little has happened, and so it just like, yeah, it kind of has my head spinning a bit. Like, I understand everything, but I think maybe also she is trying to be a bit ambitious for her debut, because she is trying to pick up a lot of topics and trying to like obviously weave them in, like using like magic, like Fathom folk versus humans and all this stuff. And so she's trying to deal with a lot, like, like racism and prejudice and like immigration and all of that stuff. And she's trying to deal with that, and I don't necessarily think she's doing a bad job, but I think maybe because of the fact she's trying to cover so many things and it is her first book, I think that maybe some of the topics aren't getting the development that they quite need and deserve, and like could be, because like, I don't think she's doing a bad job of them. It's just like, she's jumping around from place to place to place so that we never fully get to sit with something and with a point. And sometimes she's just like really obvious. Like, there was one point where I'm trying to think of what it was. One of these characters like had an internal monologue, was like, oh my god, I'm like, about, oh, this is the exact prejudice I've always thought about, and like, now I have to examine my own internal biases. And it's like, but like, it was literally said that. It wasn't as though like, it was implied. She literally said, like, basically said those words. And it's like, that's what makes me feel YA, because she is actively telling us these are the things that you need to examine instead of letting you figure it out, which I think is good for a YA. Sometimes younger readers need important topics to be hit over the head with it, but adult readers should be able to read and you from like context be able to figure out the message. We shouldn't need to be smacked over the head with it. Okay, so finished Fathom Folk, and as I predicted, it is a 3-star, and I'm kind of annoyed by the ending because the last 40 pages felt unnecessary, because like we had all this build up and we like had a climax, and then but like there was still like stuff left open. It would have been a good place to end it, and then she kept going, and just like it didn't, like, no, you should have ended it at 40 pages earlier. That was a good place to end it, where like, you know, things were starting to get wrapped up, but like you still had more coming. But like that last 40 pages, I'm like, why should I bother? like that part, like that doesn't interest me as much. So I don't know whether or not I'll continue. Yeah, I don't know. As I said, like that last 40 pages was not enjoyable. So yeah, it got real messy. That was like, yeah, it got real messy towards the end. But like I literally have nothing to add. I mean, I read it all in one day, so like it is a fast read. I didn't necessarily care about the characters much. As I said, everything felt very average. The characters are characters that we've seen before. None of them had a lot of depth. They all were pretty surface level. They contained a lot of like tropes and character archetypes. I do think that like I see what she was trying to do with like kind of like these 3 different women that we're following, and just how they all kind of rebel in small ways or big ways. Like I did enjoy that part of their characters, of like how they represent like, you know, the more action heavy, the trying to do it slowly with politics and small changes, and then just like also the kind where it's just like for your own self gain. Like, so like I did enjoy that, like what the characters represented. Do I think they delivered very well on it? Again, like it was okay, but it wasn't great. And that's just how everything was. The writing, it was okay. As I said, I did have a couple of problems, which I already spoke about. But like, again, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't poorly written. It was very absorbing. It was quick, but a couple of issues. And then, as I said, the plot, like, it was a bit messy. It was a bit jumping around. I feel like this could definitely be very forgettable for me. So yeah, a 3-star. Like, and like the thing is, because like obviously, like technically I agree with the Goodreads rating, because the Goodreads rating I think is 3.27. So like technically I agree. But like also, like I don't get why it's so low. Because like I've read a lot worse that has a lot better of a rating. And like, as I said, this is like, it's so average. And there's so many like average, solid, but nothing exceptional books out there that have good ratings. So I am confused a little why it has such a low rating. I'll be intrigued to read some reviews. Hello, this is like a different angle, which honestly kind of a bad angle because the light is literally behind me, but I was too lazy to set up anywhere else, so here we are. I was hoping to finish the whole thing yesterday, but I got, I think, a little over halfway. I don't know the exact amount, but I got a little over halfway into To Cage of God by Elizabeth May, and I'm liking this slightly more than Fathom Folk, but I still have a feeling it's going to be another 3-star, which again, devastating because it's so beautiful. So this book follows Galena and Sarah, and they are like adoptive sisters, I guess. Their mother pushed the power of gods into them, which commoners should not be able to do. I think like usually like nobility are like born with this, and it doesn't happen with commoners, and so the two of them have gods and have these powers, and the two of them, their mother is now dead, and they decide to kind of go against their mother's original plans and come up with a plan for themselves. So we have Galena, and she is infiltrating the castle to try and get close to the Empress, while the other sister, Sarah, tries to come up with a plan to kind of stop their abilities. So I would say this book is kind of at a bit of a disadvantage being read like right now, because I have already read a like Russian and like Imperial Russia inspired book this month. I read Blood Air by Emily Wenzel, and I have also just read like a very tropey, fun read with Fathom Folk. So I already feel like this book is kind of at a disadvantage being read right after that, and also, you know, with it only like what, less than 2 weeks after I read Blood Air. I think I prefer this slightly more than both of them, but as I said, I'm still not loving it. I am surprised by how low, because like this has roughly the same rating as Fathom Folk. I think maybe this is like a 3.3, whereas Fathom Folk was like a 3.27. So like not much in the difference. But like Fathom Folk, like I don't think there's actually anything like wrong with this. It to me feels very average. As I said, it is very tropey, and this definitely does lean more adult than Fathom Folk does, just with like some of the scenes are a bit more like graphic, and you know, it is like slightly more explicit. But even then, there's, as I said, and like that's not to say that like YA books, adult books don't have tropes in them, because they do. But I think how adult books play with those tropes is very different from a YA book, and I feel like the way that this book does the tropes is quite YA leaning. Though I will say, because I suppose I'm thinking like, oh, these were like such YA tropes in like 2017, but in like fantasy romance, like these tropes have kind of like come back around and are like actually like very much in an adult fantasy romance. But I just don't really like many adult fantasy romances, so maybe that's kind of the problem. A big problem, I don't think I like, see, when I was originally planning what I was going to say for this, thinking about what I wanted to say, I was going to say I just don't think I like Russian inspired stories, but that is not true. Spinning Silver I have like right over there, and I obviously have the Winter Night trilogy. I love those books. Those are set in historical Russia, but I think the way that they are done I prefer, because they are actually set in Russia. Whereas this, Blood Air, and like the Russia trilogy, I don't like any of them, because like I'm like, why? Because like the only thing Russian about it is like, oh, there's an imperial family, which, okay, there's so many of those, and like there's Russian names. It's like, okay, so is it Russian? And so like it just doesn't, yeah. So for me, I just like, I don't get it, because like with Spinning Silver and like The Bear and the Nightingale, like I suppose they were taking place, number one, they used the atmosphere, the cold, to create like some beautiful writing, some like really creating a vibe and all of that. And I'm gonna pick it up. And yeah, and so for those, and then also like you could tell so much research, because like in later books or later in the book, it does kind of get into like the royal family and all of that, but even the way it's written, like you can tell there's so much research into the time period from both of those authors. Whereas this, I feel like they just like watched Anastasia growing up, did some Googling. I was like, interesting. The Empress is almost like a caricature of a bad person. Like, I want to burn the place down because I have this power and I might as well. It's like, okay. Like, I guess. I just wish she had just created her own world, because there is some like interesting foundations to the magic and stuff, but it's just none of it is developed, because I think she wants the fact that it's Russian inspired to do the heavy lifting. Like, okay, well, you know a bit of history, right? So you know what kind of setting I'm going for. It's like, why don't, I would prefer her to really develop it herself. And I think that's kind of my problem with this. Fathom Folk, like, I wanted development of, like, everything. Because I think she had some really interesting ideas, but she wasn't 100% sure how to do it. And so she was either whacking us over the head with it, or she wasn't developing the characters into their own characters and just making them archetypes. And in this one, I think the characters are a little more stand on their own, but I think the interactions with other characters is where this falls flat compared to, like, Fathom Folk, I think, did, like, relationships a little better. But with this one, it's just, like, there's, like, 2 separate romances, and, like, I don't really get either of them, to be honest. And there's also, like, obviously the sister bond, and I also just haven't really seen much of that either. And I think that's really where this story, and, like, it could, if it was, and it could thrive. I think it could be a brilliant story about, like, sisters and love and all of this, and, you know, how all of these stuff comes together for this rebellion. But she's just not developing that stuff, and it's kind of annoying. It has potential, and it's not living up to it, just because I don't think she's developing the right things. That I'm not disliking it. I'm having a good time. I think the audiobook is good. The narrator does a good job, but it's not going to be, like, any favorite. It's probably going to be a 3-star. But I'm more inclined to probably pick up the sequel to this than I am Fathom Folk. So yeah. Okay, so I finished 2 Cage of God yesterday, and I'm giving it a 3-star, which I thought I would. I was right. Surprise, surprise. I did definitely prefer it to Fathom Folk, which, as I said, it does have, like, 0.1 advantage on Goodreads. So I guess I agree with that. But, and, like, here's the thing, it's like with Fathom Folk, like, I don't really understand why it's so low, because, like, I don't think it's bad. Like, I think it's just extremely average. And, like, yeah, I'm giving it a 3-star, which is technically means I'm, like, agreeing with the low average rating. But as I said, like, when you see books that are, like, average, like, nothing special, and they have, like, super high ratings, like, they're, like, really high, like 3.9 to, like, 4 point whatever, and it's just, like, I don't really understand what it is about these. I suppose just the fact that less people have read them, I suppose. But, like, yeah, it's just, I don't really have anything to say. Like, I liked everything. I don't think there was anything in here that I actively disliked, as I said, except kind of the world building. I just thought it was a bit sloppy, that she didn't really develop or think much about a lot of things, because she was like, well, it's based on Russia, so just use your knowledge on that. And so that was kind of like my only, like, big problem with it. But everything else, like, was fine. Like, the characters were fine. I didn't love them. I didn't feel really attached. There was a couple of moments towards the end where I did actually, like, start to feel the stakes, especially it was a one-side character that I did actually, like, feel for. And I thought, like, she is, like, such a small part of the book though, but, like, I thought she was done really well. But, like, the actual, like, 4 main characters, I would say, they were okay. They were fine. They got a bit of development, but, like, nothing, you know, crazy. I didn't really love or connect to them. Their relationships were okay. Again, they definitely had some, like, cute moments. They definitely had a couple of moments I was, like, really, but most of the time I was kind of ambivalent. And I like the plot and all of that, like, just, yeah, a pretty, like, straightforward plot. And I think this did have a lot of potential if it was just a little more developed. I think it could have really worked for me. Now I'm on to my final book for this, and that is Into the Forest by Kel Woods, and I did start it last night. I'm not very far in. I'm like 100 pages. And in fairness, I think I might be enjoying it the most, which this was the book I was, like, least looking forward to in this vlog. So and it might be the one that I like the most. Like, doesn't seem to be much of a plot. It is very much character driven, but I'm intrigued by the characters, so yeah. Hi, so I'm here to talk about the last book, which is After the Forest by Kel Woods, and just, I guess, in general, wrap this up. So I don't actually really think I talked to you at all about this. So this is After the Forest, and it follows Gresha, and it's obviously Hansel and Gretel continuation, let's say. So it is years and years in the future. Their parents are dead. Her brother is in a lot of debt, and she is hearing the witch's grimoire, basically. And this is also going to be a 3-star, but it is the best one. So we did get better as the book it went on. The first half was, I would say, a 4-star, and then the second half just kind of lost me, because here's the thing is the plot, there wasn't much, and then when it was introduced, I just didn't really care that much for it. But I think this book definitely has the best characters, the best writing out of all of them, I think. And also, I think you can tell how much research that the author has put in to this particular time in history. Okay, I do not know where the hell the rest of that clip went. This keeps happening to me. I think it's because I switched over a new phone, and like I'm deleting stuff and I'm moving stuff, and I think I'm losing stuff basically. But it's been like 2 weeks since I finished this book, so I do not remember a lot. But as I said, it was a 3-star. It was my favorite 3-star out of the video. And I think overall, I think I had a couple of issues, but it was more based on like what my perception of what the book was going to be versus what the book was actually about. And so like it was more my fault than the book's fault. But I think I kind of wanted to do, like, with the first half, which I really liked. I liked the writing. I liked the atmosphere that was being created. I thought the amount of detail and research into the time period that the author had done was really impressive. And it was like, you know, a very typical, like, it felt like it did have like some similarities with stuff I've read before, you know. Typical girl in that time period is a bit odd, so everyone is like, is she a witch? And all this kind of stuff. But I guess I wanted it to be more about her coming to terms with this magic in her and kind of going on that journey by herself, whereas it was actually more like people dragging her into this journey. I just wanted it to be more about her and not these other people. And there was, as I said, there wasn't like a plot introduced. There was like this magical curse potentially, and this witch that is going around, and I actually didn't love the resolution of it. Like, it wasn't bad, but I just, again, all about like the perception I had going into it, what I would have liked it to be. I think I would have preferred if it was nearly more a very, because like then she's like going out of their village and doing other stuff and all of this, and I would have preferred if it just remained more small scale, where it's just her and her family and just her coming to terms with all of the stuff that has happened throughout her life and dealing with that. And we did get some of that, but I think I would have preferred that to be the main plot of the story instead of introducing, like, there was like werewolves and stuff like this that were introduced, and I was like, what? So yeah, but I did enjoy it. It was my favorite book out of this. And I suppose probably in like maybe next month or the month after, I will probably do a part 2. So stay tuned for that, I guess. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.